What's up bikers, I'm Johnny Thompson and I've got COVID. But as promised, we're doing workout of the week. So every single Sunday over the off season of the mountain biking in the Northern Hemisphere, we're gonna give you a workout of the week. If that's not enough for you, then sign up to a program on fitforracing.com. And if this is the first time that you've watched, then check over our previous videos for stuff that will make you a better rider. So as I mentioned, I've got COVID and there's not a lot else I can do other than looking after myself with soup, hot baths, lots of rest, and today's workout, mobility. So mobility is crucial for the longevity of any rider and it increases your performance in and out of the gym. So there's lots of things that we do on the bike that will create tension, particularly around the shoulders, hip flexors, around the hips, that we can counteract so that then we can ride better and for longer. This is a follow along workout, so you can skip forwards. If you look at the timer down at the bottom there, this is when the actual workout's gonna start. So let's get into it. We're gonna start warming up with a global stretch with a little bit of movement through. We're going from a down dog into a cobra position. So as I said, we're gonna go 2 minutes on this at your pace. So we're gonna go now. So down dog position, really good through the hamstrings, glutes, lower back and shoulders. And then we're gonna reverse that into this cobra position, which if you like to, you can untuck your toes and go onto your knees. Really good for the lower back. So what we're gonna do is position ourselves in a nice down dog and then rotate through with nice breaths in between. You can breathe in on the transition, out on the hold, in through the transition, out through the hold. So it's really not just a meditative suggestion. So we're not yoga fanatics here, but the actual breathing will really help your nervous system sit into these stretches and get more out of it. So contrary to popular belief, you don't want to hold a stretch where it's painful or you're going beyond your limit. Actually, you should be about 70% and then allow your body and your mind to relax into that position. You'll get the most out of it then, because quite a lot of the stretch and your ability to hit end range comes from the neuromuscular connections into your muscles from your brain, which we're really training here. This big holistic stretch is just going to get us a little bit more ready for some of the passive stretching that we're going to do in just a second. In about 15 seconds, we're then going to move into my all-time favorite for the psoas and lower back problems. So we're going to go to a 90-90 stretch now, which we're going front leg first. If you take a look, my front calf is flat on the ground, knee down. What I'm trying to do here is not just sit passively, but we're going to adjust the hip. So like with lots of these stretches, adjusting the hip to get the angle change where we want it. And then you can afford to lean a little further forward, supported by the other hand, chest nice and tall. Then you should feel that down into your adductors, into your groin. And this all into there will help relieve some of the pressure that might be causing some lower back pain. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend a minute on an external rotation on the front leg with 10 seconds to go now. And then we're going to do external rotation, internal rotation on the back leg. So swapping now, we're going to look over the back. You can, if you want, put your hands on your leg, give it a little extra twist. A little squeeze of the love handle in there. Might be restricted by your body composition, as this lockdown has certainly changed mine. But in all honesty, during a lot of sedentary lifestyle things like working in an office more, obviously the time at home, not on the bike, not in the gym, then you might find yourself in a different position. So doing mobility to open up hips and get you more functional before any kind of exercise or riding, and just add it into your daily routine. This is really going to help you ride for longer without any pain. The reason why most people stop riding is because they pick up injuries, or they can't because of, overuse, positional stuff, right? We're going to swap now onto the other side. So 90-90 opposite side. Whoa, this one's a little tight for me. So we're going the external rotation front leg first. Really going to drive the chest down towards the knee, but I say towards the knee, you're not going to change your back position. So keeping your back nice and tall will change the position in the hip. That's all we want to do in this, is change the position of the hip to reach that big stretch. And once you're there, if you can, breathe through it. If you've got COVID, short breaths, and just get oxygen in. But try not to get tense. Look, I've got a sweaty upper lip already. Really feverish. I hope you guys appreciate this. But I made a promise, and we're doing a workout of the week every Sunday. 3, 2, 1, and then out the back. Whoa. So don't underestimate this internal rotation leg. So quite often you'll find people doing lots of external rotation through the hip and really looking after it in that sense. But this internal rotation here, this is what I find really alleviates some lower back pain when I've not been looking after myself, when I've been sitting down a lot and riding the bike a lot. So obviously on the bike, you're in that hunched over position with the closed hip, and we really want to counteract that so we can go about our business and train well. So when I say about training, this will help you training, then what we really want to do is help your movement throughout training, life, and riding. So when I say it's going to help you training, which will then help you riding, that is because it helps the function and the movement that you're able to help with, able to perform. So we're going 3, 2, 1, and then we're going toes, feet together, and then opening the hips here, sitting on the sit bones. It's a nice simple stretch. So if you've noticed, we're working through the hips first, then we're going to go up into the back, and then shoulders to finish. So if you have particular shoulder issues, you can always skip forward on this video, or if you're watching along, hopefully this is part of your daily routine and you can watch back over the relevant parts. And we're going for a section of 1 minute slots or 2 minutes on the really aggressive, the big bang for buck mobility stuff. So we've got about 15 seconds here, and then we're going to up the ante. I've got with me a little stool that I'm going to show you, and we're going to sit in a side split for a whole 2 minutes. So I'm going to cut that short 5 seconds so I can grab this stool. Now, some of you are going to be flexible enough to go without the stool, which is fantastic. I am not. So I'm going to use this just to support me. As I say, this is going to be a full 2 minute stretch. So I want you to settle down into it. A little bit of movement is fine. Don't be aggressive on it. As I said before, you want about 70% stretch so that then your body's not going to fight against it. You want to really settle down in. And as with most stretches, 2 minutes is ideal because then you really get used to it and your neuromuscular connections then really relax and it basically allows your body to feel comfortable in an end range that normally you wouldn't have. So if you just pull a stretch for 10 seconds each side, that's maybe not so bad if you're mobilizing to do a workout or get onto your bike and you're doing more dynamic work just to hit that end range that day for the first time. But if you want to make real change, then 2 minutes in each of these stretches. We've already done a minute there, so what I'm going to do is come up taller, relax down a little bit more, breathe through. Another 30 seconds. So changing where you need to. Just make sure that you're not on the verge of splitting yourself anywhere. So this is going to be so, so good for you people out there that have lower back issues created by time on the bike or time at a desk or traveling. Right, we've got 3, 2, 1, and we're coming out of that. I'm going to flip over now. I've got a sofa behind me, and we're going to put a leg up and then sit back into the sofa stretch. The Kelly Starrett made this famous calling it the sofa stretch because it is simply that, a sofa stretch. There's lots going on here. We're going to do 2 minutes on each side, so the timer in the bottom will guide you. Now, while we're here for the first time, if you notice I came straight up. If it's too much, then you can keep your hands on the ground, or you can put 1 or 2 hands on your leg, but ultimately it's the angle change in your front hip here. So what we want to do is a big stretch through the quad and that back leg, heel up to your butt, and as far as you can, pushing back into it, 70%, so we're not going full Van Damme between palm tree stretch. We're going for quads, hip flexors, and by locking down my obliques either side here, stabilizing my spine, then I'm going to be able to open the hip rather than just get into a position. So if you look here, I'm broken at the hip, so there's an angle here that if I sit up from my lower back, it looks like I'm in the right position, but I get this lower rib popping out, which I really don't want to do because the hip is still in the same position. So instead, from here, brace the obliques, clench your butt, pull up, so you're getting nice and tall on it, and that's where we get change in the hip that makes the difference between a really sloppy positional position, so a really sloppy position that doesn't really have any benefit, or an active, although passive, position that's really making change in that particular area. So we're going, swapping sides in 3, 2, 1, and big swap. You will find that most of these unilateral movements, so when we're focusing on one side, there will be a difference between sides, and you might then find an imbalance. Imbalance can be in strength, but also mobility. So if you're stiffer on one side, the movement's inhibited, particularly when we're doing lots of sagittal movements like squats and deadlifts. It's important that both sides are as close as they can be to really look after yourself, because imbalance then can create, particularly emanating around the lower back, can create issues. That's what we really want to avoid. Imbalance can be front and back as well, so that mobility in both hip flexors with weak glutes and hamstrings is a very common issue with riders. So that imbalance then can create dysfunction in movement and everyday life that then again emanates in the lower back. But up into the upper back and shoulders, there's lots going on with imbalance. So any of these, pay attention to any sides that might be more stiff or immobile than the other and spend some time on it. Anyone with injuries will know exactly what I'm talking about when those injuries then create differences between sides, and then you can get issues either way. So we've got another 30 seconds on this. I'll take some breaths simply to get my oxygen levels up. Apologies, I'm going to apologize for the way that I sound. I've really completely lost my sense of taste and smell as well, which is interesting. Okay, so we've got another 5 seconds, and then we're going on the knees. So to carry on a little bit of stretch through the quads, we're going on to the knees, but this time we're going arm up and over the back. This is a traditional stretch for the lats. But I particularly like it because if you shuffle your heels either side of your butt and sit down, you can get into the quads and reach down your back with that arm. I like it because it goes up into the tricep and really helps with the stretch through areas that you might get stiff in, particularly when you work out a lot. Things like pull-ups and push-ups, really stiffening up the shoulder, which then creates dysfunction. And obviously is going to mean that you're more prone to injury. So again, breathing through. Try not to fight against the stretch. Just relax into it. We've got 1 more minute here. Also feeling this into the quads. If you want a little bit more stretch into the lats and up into the armpit there, you have a little hinge, not too much. You don't need a lot to make a big difference. This is a particularly good stretch if you're going to do any kind of front rack or overhead work. So a lot of these we do put into the program as primers before doing particular movements. Got another 20 seconds. Feeling some massive change there already, particularly into my tricep. We've got another 10 seconds, then we're going to swap sides. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. A little stretch out, reset, and then reach to the other side. Really getting a sweat on. That's not normal. It's reasonably cool in here, but I'm definitely feverish. So hopefully you guys are following along with the timer at the bottom. I'm just going to talk shit for the next minute and a half of this stretch. It's good. Excuse me, the timer's gone off on my laptop. Come on, timer back on. There we go. Excuse me. Well, what I was going to say is it's good if you are following along with this. As I said previously, if you can incorporate these stretches into your daily routine, then that's going to help the longevity of your riding. And everyone wants to ride for a long time and not have any issues that are created from it. So really, this type of stuff is investing in more fun times, even if you don't like it. It's one of those things that is more necessary than you give it credit for, so you really should consider doing it daily if possible, but at least 3 times a week if you can. And particularly if you do workouts, you know, you'll add mobility before and sometimes after workouts, which does help. But having independent sessions like this is really going to up the ante and keep you nice and healthy. All right, so we've got another 10 seconds, and we're going to go into a hamstring stretch. So what we did there, we did flip from hips up to shoulders. We're going back down to hips again. In 3, 2, 1. And a nice, simple, passive touch toe stretch. You can do this standing. However, I like to do it on the ground. There we can really focus on not the gravity through the lower back, but the actual stretch through the hamstrings. If you can grab your toes, that's fantastic. If not, you can hold there under your calves and just lean forwards. And as you do that, sink your head down. Breathe through, because we're going to be in this position for a good 2 minutes, really making change. So if you do lots of flat riding, not so much of the gravity stuff, then you might find hamstrings get super tight as well. So this type of stretch is going to be really good. There's pros and cons between passive stretching and active or more aggressive dynamic type stretching. Mobility work, you know, and there's the Kelly Starrett style with foam rollers, bands and balls. This is one way of doing it, and this is simply because I'm not very well and passive stretching is reasonably easy. So I don't always take the easy route, but for today, this is the best way that I can make change, positive change, whilst not pushing the limits too far. So on days where you're on a recovery and really you want to do something that feels good, that doesn't take too much effort, then absolutely passive stretching. I mean, it doesn't have to be this. then Google search, yoga flow for particular areas. If you're struggling with hips or shoulders or upper back, then by all means do a yoga flow. So we've got 5 seconds, and then we're going to flip over. We're going to get some rotation through the upper back. So in this box position here, we're going to be pushing arm through with your shoulder down and then looking up towards the ceiling. And then from there, reverse all the way to the top. So like the first down dog and cobra. A nice breathing through. We're going to do 1 minute of each side because we're not making we're not doing a passive lengthening stretch on this. We're just opening up and getting mobility through the spine in that rotation. We will go on to a hip, back to the hips after this. But we're going to do both sides. So follow along in your own time. We're going to swap sides. This is not doing my inner ear any good. I am dizzy as fuck. If I fall over, then at least you'll have a laugh, eh? If you notice, all of these are actually on the ground. So if I fall over from this position, you should be worried. Excuse me. What really gets me about this COVID is I don't often get ill, so it's really frustrated me. But you do what you can to recover, stay healthy. Mobility being one of those things. So really try and incorporate it where possible. Okay, so that's a minute each side. So going back now onto a lunge. This is a big global stretch, so I'll try and get in the camera here. So this is a good stretch that if you can only do one stretch, then if you notice, we're really stretching through the front hip and the back hip flexor. I'm being quite passive on it. I've got my elbow onto my knee. If you want to be more aggressive, then engage a little bit more, pull down, and then drive that knee, that front knee, to the outside, an external rotation there. You really feel it, much like the 90-90 stretch. A hand on the ground if you can't handle too much, or really clench your glute, pull that hip forwards, knee out to the side, and we get really good bang for buck positional stretch here. So we've done 1 minute. Because this is a good one, we're going to do 2 minutes. As with all of them, a nice breathing rhythm. Obviously, I'm not doing so well because I'm talking. We've got another 40 seconds. So if you're enjoying this, if you're following through. If you're following on with this and you're enjoying it, then we do have some more on the website for free. So check back at fitforracing.com. Search through there. We did one a couple of years ago, COVID one. Different again, but any kind of mobility is going to be good. So in my opinion, let's swap sides. 3, 2, 1. In my opinion, doing lots of different types of mobility is good for you. So don't stick to one modality, so type of mobility training. I'd encourage you to try lots of different ones so that, we're doing some passive stretches here. Yoga's fantastic because it's varied and entertaining in a sense. It's good for the mind as well. And then you go on to the Kelly Starrett style mobility WOD, with the myofascial release and that kind of stuff, with lacrosse balls, banded distractions, flossing or voodoo bands, whatever. There's loads of stuff out there. But don't be too caught up in the whole massage gun and all of the product salesy type mobility stuff. Everyone's looking for an easy way to do mobility. I did a video on massage guns, and to be honest, the more I see them, the more I use them, the less bothered I am about it, because it doesn't really achieve that much compared to something like this. So you can spend 20 minutes with a massage gun and get no benefits, or you can spend 20 minutes doing a stretching or mobility routine and get 10 times the benefits. It's just a little bit more effort. Everyone's looking for things that take no effort, right? If only we could get more skills on the bike with less effort. Okay, we've got another 20 seconds here. And then we're going for a big quad stretch to finish. This one's a little bit more active. I do particularly like it because it really opens me up, helps stretch my quads out, which get particularly tight when I ride, but also whilst doing squats, which I haven't done for a couple of weeks because of COVID. However, I'm going to put it in because it is one of my favorites. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a set of between 8 and 12, so in your own time, and this is the final thing that we'll do. You're going to sit down with your bum inside your heels. We did that position there with the shoulder, but this time you're going to lean back as far as you feel comfortable, but we get a big, long stretch down the quads into the knees. And then from there, I'm going to stand yourself up, and then control yourself back down. And when you get to the bottom, a nice drive. Anyone with knee issues, if this causes pain, then you can do it by supporting yourself and driving up and reducing the load. If you don't have any patella tendon issues, then this will safeguard you quite a lot from that. So we're going mobility through the quads, loosening it up, but also putting some load through. You might find that all of that overuse can contribute to the tension in the quads and then under the knee. So as many as you can handle there, that's as many as I can do right now, because as I say, I'm completely fucked with COVID. So that's that for today. It was a follow along, so hopefully you can watch back on this video again. Go with the timer, make yourself feel good, particularly around the hips and the shoulders. This is only a small section of the things that you should be doing. So hopefully in the future we will give you more. Hopefully I won't have COVID and find it necessary to be doing these home ones. However, we will give you some. So I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. As I've said a few times, visit fitforracing.com. If you want to follow a more holistic program for mountain biking specifically, it's strength and conditioning, followed by some of the best riders in the world. We're very proud of it. We hope that you can at least try us for a little while and see some benefits and learn some things that'll take your fitness to the next level, so that then you can ride better for longer and probably faster for most of you that want to race. And that's it this time. I've been Johnny Thompson. See you next time. Peace.